Welcome back to Maranatha Teaching Channel. I am Femi Fenojo, your host. When we talk about the end time event, we have to understand God's dealing with Israel and the church. Israel is God's prophetic clock. Past history attested to this fact, and future event will also confirm this. Last teaching, we look at the cataclysmic event of AD 70 when, in fulfillment with prophecy, the Roman army breached Jerusalem's outer wall and ransacked the city and burnt and destroyed. According to Jewish historian Josephus, 1.1 million Jewish died and 97,000 were enslaved and dispersed throughout the empire. Israel as a nation was driven out of the land God gave to them by covenant, and they were dispersed throughout the world. The Jews endured harsh persecution while in the countries where they were scattered. The most obvious persecution the Jewish people have ever faced was the Holocaust at the hands of the Nazis Germany during World War II, during which almost 6 million Jews were killed. The Lord, however, not only promised that Israel will be dispersed and persecuted, but that they will be preserved as a nation. Last week we read Matthew 23 and we read Isaiah 11. Today let's read Jeremiah 30 from verse 1. The word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Thus spake the Lord of Israel, saying, Write thee all the words that I have spoken unto thee in a book, for lo, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, saith the Lord. I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. Other scripture that affirm this return include Isaiah 43, 4-7, Jeremiah 16, 14-16, Jeremiah 23, 7-8, Jeremiah 29, 14, Jeremiah 33, Isaiah 39, 25-29, and Amos 9, 14-15. Following the event of AD 70, for almost 2,000 years, the Jews were scattered and persecuted. In May 14, 1948, against all odds, the modern state of Israel was reborn, and the Jews began to return to their homeland, to the covenant land of promise, from all over the world. It is this miracle we are focusing on today. Thomas Newton, the Bishop of Bristol from 1961, and he was also the Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral in London from 1968, he said, the preservation of the Jews is really one of the most single and illustrious acts of divine providence, and what but a supernatural power could have preserved them in such a manner, as none other nation upon the earth has been preserved. Nor is the providence of God less remarkable in the destruction of their enemies than in their preservation. We see that the great empires, which in their turn subdue and oppressed the people of God, are all come to ruin. And if such has been the fatal end of the enemies and oppressors of the Jews, let it serve as a warning to all those who at any time or upon any occasion are for raising a clamor and persecution against them. Mark Twain, in his short essay book titled Concerning the Jews, in 1899 wrote, The Egyptian, the Babylonian, and the Persian rose, they filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman followed and made vast noise, and they are gone. Other people have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burnt out, and they sit in twilight now or have vanished. The Jews saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energy, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality? Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1940 to 1945 and again from 1951 to 1955 said, Some people like the Jews and some do not, but no thoughtful man can deny the fact that they are beyond any question the most formidable and the most remarkable race which has appeared in the world. Charles Crottimer, a renowned American political communist, wrote in 11 of May 1998 edition of the Weekly Standard, Israel is the very embodiment of Jewish continuity. It is the only nation on earth that inhabits the same land, bears the same name, speaks the same language, and worships the same God that it did 3,000 years ago. You dig the soil and you find pottery from Davidic time, coins from Bakoba, and 2,000-year-old scrolls written in a script remarkably like the one that today advertises ice cream at the corner candy store. In Matthew 24 verse 3, the disciple asked the Lord Jesus Christ, Tell us, when shall this thing be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? Starting from verse 7, we have a description of events that will herald the approach of the tribulation, though not its actual start. The first event the Lord spoke is listed for us in verse 7, which was that nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. This phrase, nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, is an idiom used by Jewish rabbis to designate total conflict within whatsoever geographical area the context is talking about. So the Lord Jesus is here speaking of military conflict and global warfare that will engulf the entire world and herald the approach of the tribulation. In other words, World War. World War I gave birth to Balfour Declaration, the 1917 British white paper that legitimized Zionism and promises the Jews a homeland in Palestine. World War II gave birth to Israel itself, arising out of the ashes of Holocaust and formally validated by United Nations in 1948. Out of World War II then came some most significant development. Immediately after World War II, the United Nations was formed in 1946, opening up the possibility of a world government. The World Council of Churches, a worldwide interchurch organization, was founded in 1948, opening up the possibility of a world religion, and World War II gave birth to Israel itself. This opened the door for the regathering of Jews and their possession of their ancient land. But there is a very, very big problem. The problem of the Arab Palestinians neighbor of Israel. Today, Israel is like a tiny, tiny island in a sea of Arab countries. In the next teaching, by the grace of God, we will pick up the teaching from here. But before we go, I need to mention a few words about the Temple Mount. As I mentioned earlier, the Jewish second temple, which had been greatly expanded under Herod the Great in the 1st century AD, was destroyed in AD 70 by the Romans. After the Bar Kokhba revolt in AD 135, a Roman temple of Jupiter, Capitolinus, was built at the site. However, the control of the land changed hands through wars and bloodshed. After the Romans, the land of Israel was ruled by Islamic crusaders, then by Christian crusaders, and back to Islamic crusaders. But leading to World War I, the Middle East, including the area of Israel, was under the control of the Ottoman Empire. During the rule of Jerusalem by Christian Byzantine Empire in the 4th to 6th century, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was built under Constantine in the 320s AD, but the Temple Mount was left undeveloped after a failed project of restoration of the Jewish temple under Julian the Apostate. Now, standing on this spot, the spot where Abraham attempted to sacrifice his son Isaac, the very spot where both the first and the second temple were built, the place where God's divine presence has been manifested more than any other place on earth, the spot towards which the Jews turned during prayer, on this same spot in the center of the Temple Mount in the old city of Jerusalem is an Islamic shrine called the Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock was initially completed in AD 691. The original dome collapsed in AD 1015 and was rebuilt in AD 1022 to 1023. Until the mid-20th century, non-Muslims were not permitted in the area of the Temple Mount. Since 1967, non-Muslims have been permitted limited access. However, non-Muslims are not permitted to pray on the Temple Mount or bring prayer books or wear religious apparel. Because of the Temple Mount entry restriction, the Western world, or what is popularly called the Wailing Wall, is the holiest place where Jews are permitted to pray, though the holiest site in the Jewish faith lies behind it. The Western Wall, or the Wailing Wall, is a relatively small segment of a far longer ancient retaining wall erected as part of the expansion of the second Jewish temple begun by Herod the Great. The Wailing Wall is considered holy due to its connection to the Temple Mount. The Temple Institute is an organization in Israel focused on the endeavor of establishing the third temple. Its long-term aim are to build the third Jewish temple on the Temple Mount on the site currently occupied by the Dome of the Rock, and to reinstate animal sacrificial worship. It has researched and studied temple construction and ritual and has developed actual temple ritual objects, garments, and building plans suitable for immediate use in the event condition permit the construction of the third temple. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this teaching today has been a blessing to you. Please join me again next time by the grace of God on Maranatha Teaching Channel. Shalom.